Hi besties. Today what we're going to be talking about is how our childhood wounds. Also, I noticed some of y'all think I'm really funny, and I just want to tell you that I appreciate that so much because I think I'm really funny too. Anyways, today we're going to be talking about how our childhood wounds, which we talked about in the last video, which if you didn't watch yet, I'm going to link it down below so you can watch that and then come back to this, manifest into our adult lives. Once we understand the core childhood wounds that exist, it's about recognizing, well, how does it even show up in my life, right? Let's do a quick recap of the three core childhood wounds. The first is your worthiness and shame wound. The second is abandonment wound. And the third is your control wound. Now, here is where it gets super freaking interesting because we're going to understand something about how, and like it's like, almost recognizing that, oh my God, this is what happens. A lot of times, the interesting thing about reality is that a lot of times when we are going through these patterns and these experiences, we just think that that's life. We just think that this is just what reality is, that people probably just suck, or whatever experiences you keep repeating. And when you learn about the manifestation of your childhood wounds and how you attract it into your own life, it's like this mind-blown moment where you're like, oh my God, this is what's been happening. I encourage you to sit at the edge of your seat today because you're gonna have a lot of mind-blown moments. If I had an editor and I wasn't editing my videos myself, I would have them edit this explosion on top of my head. For now, I want you to visualize there's this explosion going on top of my head. My team will be resuming after Eid. Anyways, let's start here. This is you as a child. These are the whatever wound you took from here, whatever gift your childhood gave you. This wound comes into your energy field. This green over here, by the way, this represents the childhood wound that is in your energy field as over here as a child. And now when you grow and you physically grow into your adult life, you start having new experiences, life starts to change. What happens is that these wounds never leave your energy field. They're still a part of your energy field. They are still within you and all around you. And it's like, I don't know if you've watched one of my other videos about how our energy fields are and whatnot, but it's essentially we all have this energetic field around us. And in that energetic field, oh my God, I know what my next video is going to be. It's going to be about thought forms because thought forms are so powerful. They're like these, I'm not going to spill it for you yet, but my next video is going to be that, and it's going to give you a lot of context on our energetic fields as well. But for now, we have this energetic field around us, and we carry the energy we carry in our energetic field sort of attracts the same kind of experiences and the same kind of people in our lives. And to sort of explain that a bit, everything in reality is essentially energy, right? Money is energy, people are energy, you and me, we are both energy. And energy, the vibration that I am in, the reason I'm lagging so much like a freaking Core i3 is because I'm trying to explain it in a way that will be very easy for you to understand. Through the energy that we have in our own energy field, we draw experiences and people that are sort of a reflection of what is in our field. And they sort of reaffirm what we believe to be reality. If I think reality is if my beliefs and the way I see the world is that life sucks and people suck and everyone's always trying to hurt me and I'm scared and it's a lot of this fear, negativity, whatnot, I will attract experiences that reaffirm that because all of reality is just a mirror. As adults, we have the same energetic wounds in our field. And so we keep attracting experiences that reaffirm. If your belief, for example, or in your childhood, one of your wounds is of worthiness, then you will keep attracting people who will give you an experience that will make you believe that I'm not worthy, that I'm not important. I was talking to one of my best friends this morning, and she was telling me something about an experience she's been having, and I realized, and I told her this thing, that she said, this person in my life always, they make me feel like I'm not important, and they make me feel like I'm not heard, I'm not understood, I'm not seen, and so on and so forth. And it was interesting to me because this wasn't the first time something like that had happened. I told her, I was like, how did you feel when you were growing up? What were the themes like? Did you feel like you weren't heard and seen? Did you feel like you weren't important? And believe you me, it was true. She had that wound in her energy field. Because she felt that way, she kept attracting people that reaffirmed that to her, that you're not important. Because we cannot perceive a reality that is greater than our own beliefs. If I cannot think about a better reality if I have not healed within my field. So anything that exists within my field will be the filter I see reality through. And so because those were the wounds in her field, she kept attracting people who reaffirmed that. I'll give you my own example. I had a huge worthiness and shame wound. And so every relationship, every other almost relationship I attracted, the biggest thing was that, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. And if someone liked me, my question would be, why do you like me? Why me? You're gonna leave, and I don't think I deserve love. And because it's the child that didn't feel worthy for whatever reason. The idea today is that we understand the way these wounds show up in our adult lives, and then what the cure is, so you can begin your healing journey. We are energetically stuck in that inner child's energy. There's this interesting thing that came to my mind when I was making this chart, which for my friend Amna Mehdi, I do make my own charts. I have markers to prove it. She asked me, who makes your charts, man? The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. We've heard this so many times. We've heard people say this. People say that, oh, you're just like your mom, or you're acting like your dad, or the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And if you think about it for a moment, you kind of realize, why do people say that? It's because when the child is in that growing age and their logical mind has not yet developed, they're absorbing the beliefs and patterns of the parent. They're absorbing everything the parent is doing, and they're unconsciously imprinting that into their reality, into their personality. And that's why the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. But the good news is that it doesn't have to stay that way. This is what happens when we don't wake up. The good news is that this is just something that is a natural course that takes place. And when we become aware, we get to change that. We get to throw the apple away far, far, far from the tree. I wish I had an apple in my hand right now. That would make me so cool. And throw the apple away. And it's not nice to throw food anyway. That's what happens when we do not step up and change those generational cycles. When we do not step up and decide that, you know what, this may have been this way for decades, but it's not going to stay this way. It's not going to stay the same. It ends with me, and it ends now with my generation. I will not pass on my wounds and my trauma to my next generation. That is the greatest act of liberation that we can give to our future generations and ourselves. Because we have to understand that you don't get to control what happens to you in a lot of times in life, especially when we're growing up. We don't have a lot of choice, but we do get to choose how we rise from the challenges that are given to us. You don't get to choose the hand of cards you're dealt with, but what you do with those cards, how you play your game, that's in your control. This is really about looking at the cards we're dealt with and saying, well, am I going to be a loser? And am I just going to be like, you know what, my cards suck, everything sucks, life sucks, this sucks, that sucks, it's their fault, it's that fault, diffuse all responsibility and be like, you know what, that's it, that's just life. And that's what most people do. And it's so sad because they spend their entire life being so miserable, having no fulfilling relationships, living angry and bitter and stressed and worried, and never really living. And if you're watching this, I know that you don't want that to be your reality. And I think the greatest gift I gave myself was deciding that I don't want this to be my reality. Deciding that it may have been going on for decades, but it ends with me. And I will work as hard as I need to make sure that this trauma, it ends with me, that I energetically release it so that I don't pass it on to the next person. So I don't bleed on people who didn't hurt me. Coming here, our purpose is really to take this energy that is in our field and release it so that we can stop recreating the same childhood dynamics, and we can create new healthy dynamics with the released energy, and we transmute that energy. And I'll show you how in just a moment. But let's first understand a few examples of the way these childhood wounds show up, right? The first and the biggest example is self-sabotage. Now, self-sabotage itself is such a huge topic. And when I was making this chart, I was thinking to myself that I should have a whole other video on self-sabotage, and maybe I will, who knows. For now, I'll give you a couple of examples of how this connects. Let's talk about relationships first, right? How does self-sabotage show up in relationships? Interestingly, let's start with you start dating someone and you really like them, and maybe they like you as well, and things are going good, and then you start to feel uncertain, and you start to feel like you start overthinking, and you start overanalyzing everything they're doing, everything they're saying, and now you're just like, oh, they don't even care about me, they don't even love me. And you start giving these meanings and creating stories about what they feel based on the energy that is here in your field from the childhood. Do you see what I'm getting at with here? Whatever you are assuming to be the truth is based off of this inner child stuck energy, not reality. And that is why a lot of times so many couples, they have these huge arguments and fights and disagreements. I remember that when I was getting married, 6-day wedding, for those of you who know. Maybe I'll make a video telling you guys my story someday. I do have a book called The 23-Year-Old Life Coach. If you ever want to read it, just comment below and I'll send you the link to get it. Anyway, so self-sabotage in relationships. I remember when I was getting married, it was a 6-day wedding and I was super nervous, super anxious. And I remember thinking that, oh my God, this guy, he's so incredible. And what do I do? What did I do to deserve this? And what did I do to be with someone who's so incredible? And I had a lot of not enoughness and a lot of shame that I felt that, oh, I'm not good enough for him, and he's not gonna like me, or this or that. Or I had all these fears and insecurities and self-doubts. And that caused me to be closed off in the beginning because I was afraid to connect with him. Because I was like, I remember always feeling like, oh, if someone ever got to know the real me, they would hate it. They would never want to be with me. And it's not that they wouldn't want to be with me. It was never about them. It was always, and it is always about us not loving ourselels. And a lot of us, we say this, we say, oh, I love myself, I'm so confident, I do this. But if we're really honest and we're really quiet and we listen to that voice in our head whenever we mess up, we will realize that it's a very unkind voice. That if you loved yourself, you would never speak to yourself that way. If you loved yourself, you would never shame yourself. You would never be cruel to yourself. You would never be unkind to yourself. And these are things that we do so often. Another experience I had was I was with someone else, and that person really, really loved me and madly in love with me, right? And I was like, I'm sorry, I can't do this. because you're gonna find out how I really am and you're gonna hate it, and I just can't go through that. And I was like doing everything I could to tell this person that you deserve better. And that's what we do when we self-sabotage, right? We get so uncomfortable with the safety. We get so uncomfortable receiving love, or someone telling us that, hey, you're worthy, hey, I want to be with you, that we push it away. And we don't know why. But we feel this urge that I need to get this away, not because we don't want love, but because a childhood energy is still stuck in you. And so unconsciously, that is ruling your decisions. It's like this evil king running your kingdom. I don't know why I said that. That's essentially what happens in relationships. Also, a lot of unhealthy abandonment, unhealthy attachment styles also come from childhood wounds, and I will make other videos about it. So let's talk about how it shows up in work. You get a new opportunity and you start to feel like maybe a good job offer, and you start to feel this imposter syndrome. I don't belong here. I'm a fraud. They're going to find out that I'm not really that good, and they're going to know that I suck, and they're going to fire me. I remember when I got my third job. It was a writing job, ghostwriting for ebooks. And I went for the interview, and and I had to give this test at the interview, and they loved my test, and they hired me on the spot. And the woman, she was like, oh, how much do you want to get paid? And I told her how much I wanted to get paid, and I thought, oh, she's never gonna go for this. And she was like, cool. And later on, by the way, I also found out that they were paying me way more than some of the writers who had been working there for a long time. That kicked my imposter syndrome in, where I was like, oh my God, they're gonna find out I'm a fraud. They're gonna hate me, they're gonna fire me, I'm gonna lose the job, I suck at this, and so on and so forth. And lo and behold, my first project, I butchered it, and the client asked for a $15,000 refund, and I almost quit because I was like, I suck. And then my coordinator, who's now back then she was my coordinator, now she's one of my best friends, one of the most beautiful people that I know. She encouraged me, she held space for me, and she sort of told me that it's okay, and you don't have to quit just because this didn't work out. And she really, really was there for me, and I am so grateful to have a sister like her in my life. Point is that we do have these self-doubts, this imposter syndrome, where we feel like we're not good enough, and we sabotage our own progress, right? And that is all because of our core childhood wounds. Another example I'll give you is when I got accepted in my A-levels college, when I got accepted at uni, I was like, this has to be a glitch in the system, because no way did they just accept me. In A-levels, I got this unconditional acceptance offer, and I was like, they have me confused with somebody else. I even called them to check that, hey, are you sure this is my offer? And they're like, why? I was like, oh, nothing. But it was because I felt unworthy. It's that deep. And if you think about it, you'll also sort of come up with your own examples of how this shows up in your life. Then let's talk about health. Health-wise, people have this weight goal that, oh my God, I want to lose X amount of weight, or I want to gain X amount of weight, or I want to eat clean, I want to do this, I want to quit smoking, whatever these goals are. And it's like they take one step forward and two steps back, because those childhood wounds sort of manifest and cause you to take one step forward and two steps back, because you don't feel worthy of that new identity you're creating. You feel like, who you are right now, you're not happy with, and you feel like this is just who you'll always be. And even so, when you make changes, you go back because you don't feel worthy of that new self. And with any change, that you try to make, we sabotage our progress because we don't shift on an identity, on a self-image level. We shift on a thinking level, maybe, believing level, maybe, but not on like a subconscious level. And because we have not yet released that stored energy that keeps us stuck in the familiar. The second example that we can think about or talk about are common beliefs that we were given when we were kids. One of the biggest beliefs that I grew up with is that turning the light on in the car is illegal. You're just, there's something wrong with you. If you turn on the light in the car at night, what are you doing, man? And I was like, way into my adulthood, I was always so afraid. Oh my God, dude, please don't turn on the light. I would use my phone flashlight, but I would never turn on the car light. Why? Because these beliefs, it's so funny sometimes, but they're imprinted in our subconscious mind. And we really see that, oh my God, this is reality. Or that girls don't argue, girls don't talk a lot. When you're younger, especially in our culture, it's this very huge belief that girls are supposed to be X way and boys are supposed to be X way, and girls should sit a certain way and talk a certain way and be very girly and like this. Why? And for so long, one of two things happen, right? We either rebel against that and we're like, you know what, IDGAF, and I will do whatever I want, and that creates a lot of resentment and bitterness. Or you succumb to those beliefs and you're like, oh, you know what? I am a shy little girl and I don't talk loud because I'm so nice. And both of those things are not helpful for you, because you need to learn who you are authentically without the filter of those beliefs that you were given. Oh my God. Yeah, this is a big one. And I will spend a little bit more time on this, which is marriage related. One of the biggest beliefs in our society that is encouraged time and time again is that when you get married, a girl is supposed to compromise and sacrifice and compromise and sacrifice and kill her identity, kill all her sense of self, kill all her personality, everything that she believes is her husband doesn't like. She should kill all of that to make the marriage work. Because making the marriage work is so important. It's the most important thing you will ever do in your life. Your biggest achievement is not that you started a business. It's that you got married. And that, I'll tell you a very, very personal and vulnerable story for this. I grew up seeing a lot of women in unhealthy marriages. I grew up watching these women not being treated the way they deserve to be treated, sometimes even not being treated like a human, and discouraged and belittled and demeaned. And there were so many women who I knew of who were in marriages that were toxic, abusive, and I always told myself that I will never be one of those women. I will never be one of those women who stay in a marriage even though she's unhappy, just because that's what you're supposed to do. In our family, no one has ever gotten a divorce, and I was like, I will be the exception and I will never stay in a marriage if I'm not happy, and so on and so forth. And then I got married. And even as I was sitting next to my husband, I remember thinking that, well, if I'm not happy, I will run away. And I will walk away, because I will not stay in a place where I am abused or manipulated or whatever. And then the marriage started. And I started noticing the things that were not quite green flags. And I started noticing some things where I was like, that's strange. It's not supposed to be like this. Why would this person say this? Or why would they act this way? Or why would they do this? And I kept telling myself at first, oh, you're just being negative, and this is happening and that is happening. And then I think 2 months almost into our marriage, my husband, he told me that, you know what, we should get a divorce. We weren't working out and we were just not really compatible. And it's so interesting that even though I had chanted to myself my whole life, for as long as I can remember, that I will never stay in a marriage where I'm not appreciated, I'm not happy, I'm not this, I'm not that. In that moment, my biggest thing was, I need to save my marriage. That I can't get a divorce. What are people gonna say? And that was my first knee-jerk reaction. And I remember when I came back home, I was in another country, and I came back home, and everyone around me kept saying this to me. Girls are supposed to compromise, and girls are supposed to sacrifice. And somebody God bless her. I don't blame anyone. The reason I'm sharing this with you is for you to become aware. But she meant well. Yet what she did say was that in the first 5 years of your marriage, you're supposed to completely kill yourself. Literally kill all parts of your personality. For example, if you're too loud, then don't be loud. If you have too many friends, give up your friends. If you're social, don't be social. If you're on Instagram, don't be on Instagram. If you dress a certain way, don't dress that way, because you're just supposed to sort of mold and fold yourself into exactly your partner's dream girl, so that they feel like I can love this person and I can be with this person. And I was shocked. And the more shocking part was that I was like, oh, I will do that. I will change myself to accommodate to this person, to be the best wife for this person. And every single day people were telling me the same kind of thing. You have to sacrifice. You have to sacrifice, you have to compromise, compromise. And a couple of months later, I went back, we started living together again. And I went with this big heart of sacrifice and compromise. I will change myself. And I changed everything about myself. And I stopped talking to my friends. I isolated myself. I don't even know. I don't even remember anymore. But the moment I got there, it was the same. And then I realized that a few months into it, I realized that I became exactly who I said I would never be, because I was so depressed that I almost ended my life. I literally wrote a suicide note. And so I realized that a sacrifice and a compromise isn't that you kill all parts of yourself and I will accept you as my wife. It's that you do the dishes and I'll cook dinner. You get the grocery bill and I'll get the water bill. That's a compromise. Both people compromise. But killing who you are to stay in a marriage, that's not a compromise. Those are beliefs that we were instilled with when we were kids. And no matter how much we logically believe that I will be the exception, it's only when you wake up that you realize, oh my God, I became exactly who I said I would never be. I was fighting for this marriage that I did not want. Literally fighting for it. And when I realized, alhamdulillah, we got a divorce. It was the best for the both of us. But I had to fight with so many people, especially my own family as well, that no, I'm unhappy. I will not stay unhappy. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is because this happens so often. I have worked with so many women who are either divorced or at the brink of divorce or in abusive, unhealthy, toxic marriages. And they're just like, oh, but what will people say? Doesn't matter what people say. People will always say something. Remember that. People will always have something to say. I know that we went a little off topic, but I feel like this is such an important message that needs to be out, that people will always have something to say. You have to stay true to your beliefs and who you are. Other examples are boys need to man up. And we have now created a society of emotionally unavailable, toxic men, because they don't know how to regulate their emotions, because they don't know how to deal with their emotions. They don't know how to be vulnerable, because they were shamed for it. They feel like if I share my emotions, I am weak, when that's far from the truth. Emotions are a natural human part of our life. There's no good or bad about it. And even the last one, which is that emotions are bad. They're intertwined. And when you see a kid crying, or at least when I used to cry, I used to get really scolded for crying. Why are you crying? And you start believing that crying is a bad thing. I can't be sad, it's a bad thing. I can't be angry, it's a bad thing. I can't feel this, I can't feel that. It's bad, bad, bad. It's just your body's way of processing energy. There's nothing bad with it, and we shame ourselves for it. Then, other few examples are low self-esteem. Low self-esteem. Low self-esteem also is out of a worthiness and shame wound where you believe that I'm not good enough, and you show up in this poor energy in relationships. You think, oh, I'd be lucky if anyone ever chose me. And you think so low of yourself. You hate yourself. You believe everyone's better than you. Other examples are you have trust issues, which is from an abandonment wound, where you feel like anyone who's in your life will always leave. People always leave. Nobody wants to stay with me. In the end, I'm all alone. I'm always betrayed by people. No one ever sticks around for me. And it's not that they don't. It's so interesting because when someone has this wound, then what happens is that they unconsciously, when they're knocked out of consciousness, they push people away. They push people away, especially when they're going through something. You isolate yourself, and then that reaffirms your belief that, oh, people always leave and I shouldn't trust anyone, and so on and so forth. And you create this whole story about why everything sucks, people suck, and so on. And there is anger. You have a lot of anger outbursts. You just can't stop yelling. Fear of abandonment, again, abandonment wound. You constantly believe, even if someone's been in your life for years, you will believe that they will leave you. Anxiety, intimacy, vulnerability, you have the hardest time. Oh my God, I used to have the hardest time opening up to people. I used to have the hardest time being vulnerable because I used to believe that I don't deserve to share my vulnerability. The emotions are a sign of weakness. I remember one time I was going through something really, really difficult. I was probably, I want to say 19, 20, at that 20, yeah. And I was going through something and it was really hard. And one of my best friends was trying to be there for me and trying to ask me what was wrong. And I just kept having panic attacks and anxiety attacks. I couldn't breathe, even when I tried to tell them. And they stayed with me for 3 hours, just holding space, telling me that it was okay and I could take all the time I needed. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is to kind of tell you that a lot of times you might not understand or realize the impact of you just holding space for someone who's going through something, but that might be something that sticks with them. Almost like reinforcing this idea that yes, this is about us healing ourselves, and also the ways we can show up for people in our lives so that we are all healing together, we are all growing together, we are all getting better together. And there's nothing more beautiful than just holding space for someone, being kind to them in a moment where they don't know what is going on, and not bringing solutions and logic or whatever, just saying that, hey, I'll play your favorite song and I'll let you do your thing. And whenever you can find that power or capacity within you to share that thing, I'm right here. And that healed so much in me, because it was, when I think about it now, that thing that was so hard for me to share was because of an inner child shame wound, because I felt so much shame for it. And when I said it aloud, when I finally 3 hours later told them, they made it feel like, hey, it's okay. And the shame wound is tied to I won't be loved wound. That if I tell this to this person, they're not going to love me anymore. They're not going to see me the same anymore. And that's true. They don't see you the same anymore. They see you even better. They love you even more, because you connect with your authenticity. We are so focused in being superficial with one another that we lose sight with our authenticity. And if we can reconnect to that, I think there's nothing more beautiful than pure human, raw human connection. These are a couple of examples, and I really hope that if you resonate with this, now you can sort of understand where this is coming from. Now let's talk about the cure, which is, the first thing is becoming hyper aware and hyper honest, which you can do by following the crumbs. Now your inner child wound leaves these crumbs in your life. And now all of these stories that I shared with you are sort of a way, an opportunity for you to reflect back to your life and notice, where are the crumbs? What is the trail? Where is it leading me to? And you will find that it leads, all of these things lead you back to the inner child. The second is to reframe the past, to take this energy that is stuck here in the past and reframe it into this energy, new healthy dynamics, and create more love and forgiveness within yourself so that your future is different. See, as we grow and as we evolve and as our consciousness evolves, as we release energy, we also change what we remember from the past. If, for example, I'll give you my own example. I used to remember the most terrible things from the past only. All the ways that life sucked. And now, when I have an expanded consciousness, when I have healed, when I have changed that energy, I look at my past and I am grateful. I am genuinely beyond grateful for every single thing, for the deaths, for the losses, for the heartbreak, for the divorce, for all the people who hurt me. I'm so grateful because I now know that it all brought me to this beautiful, incredible present moment. And I'm so grateful for who I am today, and I would not be this person without all of that. And I feel like this level of unconditional gratitude, we can only have it once we genuinely reframe the past. We see the meaning. We change. Remember in the last one, in the last in the last video, I talked about two sides of a coin, that this is the one side is what happened, one side is your story is about what happened, and how they intertwine is really what reality is, and reality is neutral. It's just, this thing happened and I felt this way, and now I can, when I look back, realize that they didn't mean to hurt me and they didn't mean to give me these wounds. They were unconscious, and I was growing up. And I gave it a certain meaning. And when I can go back and give it a different meaning now, it can change my whole life. Because I can begin to look at everything differently. And a very interesting and impactful way for this is a revision technique that I will make another video about very, very soon. And I'll tell you guys when I do. So the third is that accept that it's all a mirror. Reality is data. This is a hard one to accept for a lot of people, because this means that you take 100% unconditional responsibility for your life. That all the experiences I attracted up until now were a reflection of my own wounds. It was because it was in my field that I attracted those people, those experiences, and I needed to attract that also. Because I needed to grow and I needed to heal. I needed it to bring me where I am today. I attract my divorce. I know that. I attract that marriage. I know that. And for better or for worse, I'm grateful I attracted it, because it was a part of my journey that I needed. You have to accept that reality is just data, and you can utilize this data. So right now, look at the quality of people in your life today. Look at the quality of relationships in your life today. Look at the quality of people at your work, literally everywhere. What are the kind of people you're meeting? What are they making you feel? What is coming up for you most? What are experiences you keep repeating? And use that data to understand how it all leads back to the inner child wounds. Number 4, step into the unknown and meet your future self. Meet your true self. Sorry, not future self. Our sense of identity is often wrapped around what we do and the past and all of our experiences, and we define ourselves by that. And that's why we keep recreating the familiar, because that is how we see ourselves. That is how we identify ourselves. This is about forgetting everything about who you thought you were. If you forgot everything about what happened in your past today, just for a moment, if you forgot all your experiences, all your limitations, all the ways people hurt you, betrayed you, did this, did that, and you could start fresh and choose new beliefs and new values and new emotions and choose exactly how you want to live your life, how would that be? When you think about an extraordinary life on your terms, where you're so happy and you're absolutely madly in love with life, what does that look like? What does that sound like? What does that feel like? tap into that energy of that highest version of you. How does she live, or how does he live his life? How does she live her life? How are they showing up every day? That is your sort of footsteps to follow, to who the road back to yourself, because in our core, our essence is love. Our essence is love. That is who we are. We are loving beings. But that love gets almost like locked inside. We close it and we throw the key away when we're like, never again will I ever love anyone. Not like that, but the point is that open your heart up to love. Tap into the essence of who you are. And I'll give you an interesting tip to follow. Whatever you admire in other people, just like reality is data, for our triggers are data. Anyone who triggers you is a reflection of something inside your own energy field where you have not healed yet. I'll talk more about triggers and shadow work in some upcoming videos. There's so much I'm excited to share with you guys. But essentially, just like that, the good things that we admire in people, the things that stand out to us. So if you look at someone and you're like, oh my God, I love how passionate this person is, or I love how this thing that this person does, that is only because you already have that within you. You cannot perceive something in someone else if it is not already in you. This is a beautiful, liberating truth. If you admire somebody, think about the people you admire, right? And make a list of what you admire about them. And then realize that those are qualities that exist in you. It's just that they've got like locked up inside. But your soul, when it sees it, they're like, oh my God, that's me. It's this recognition. Bring that, use that recognition to remember, who are you in your core? Who have you forgotten to be for so long? Who can you now commit to being? What truth can you commit to? And finally, number 5 is forgiveness of self, of others, of everything. Because forgiveness is not about saying that this person is right or this person's wrong or this, that, the other. It's not about any of that. Forgiveness is really just releasing stuff that is stored in your energy field. It's about recognizing that, you know what, they were knocked unconscious and that's why that happened, and I forgive you. And there is a Hawaiian prayer that is really beautiful, which goes, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And you basically meditate with this, and I will create a meditation and explanation for this as well. So excited for that. But until then, you guys take care of yourself. I'm so happy that I get to share all of this with you, and so grateful to get to serve you. So like, comment, share, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.